On. All right, we are now live. Yes.
Awesome.
I will attempt to get those. Was the agenda that you wanted up?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Todd.
Okay.
And yeah, it is my pleasure to call this August 2021 Stormwater Advisory Committee meeting to order. And before we started, I wanted to invite Katie to, since she didn't have a chance to last month, Katie to just give us a little introduction of herself and tell us who you are and why you're interested in stormwater.
Hey everybody, my name is Katie Hill and I am with the Carl Vinson Institute of Government here at UGA. I'm an environmental lawyer and I have worked on environmental policy, mostly focused on water related stuff in Georgia since 2008. Prior to my job here at the Institute of Government, which I started in April of last year. I was with the River Basin Center, which is part of the School of Ecology at the University of Georgia, doing water policy related work. And I've done some stormwater work over the years. So I'm happy to be here and to be of assistance.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Katie, and thank you for serving on the committee. It's something we really appreciate. And going back to the River Basin Center, I just recently found this article, and I can share this with you guys if you're interested. It's an article that was authored by Seth Wanger and a bunch of other folks. And Katie, you probably know of this article. It has to do with 26 questions. And it's a really nice article about how to approach urban stream management.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I've just really dove into it. I haven't gotten through all of it. And as luck would have it, I ran into Seth the other night when we were out and about. And so I was very impressed with all of the work they put into this. And it really brought to mind the challenges that we have in looking at the situation here in Athens-Clarke County when it comes to stormwater management. So I can get it and send it to y'all if you want to take a quick look at it.
Yeah, Seth, I think that he helps organize an urban stream ecology conference every other year. I think I have that right. And I also think that before I was there, I think the River Basin Center played a pretty big role in the development of maybe of Athens-Clarke County's stormwater utility program. And I don't think I'm making this up. I think that perhaps the River Basin Center even developed some guidance for communities who are interested in developing such programs some years ago. So those are things that I unfortunately wasn't involved in, but that place sure has a history of being involved in these types of efforts.
It does. It does. All right, so the first agenda item that we have is the approval of the minutes from last month, which I had sent out to you guys. And the only change that we had to the minutes was a typo, basically. I misspelled paradigm. Does anyone have any other additions that they've just been holding on to and they want to throw at us right at this very moment? All right. Well, then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from July's monthly meeting.
Cassidy seconds.
We need a first.
I thought you said you made a motion. Well, then I motion that we accept the July meeting minutes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
I can second the motion.
Thank you, Jamie. Any discussion before we vote? All right. Well, all in favor of approving the minutes from July's meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Well, the motion carries. And the next agenda item is going to be the amendments to the agenda for tonight's meeting, actually. Does anybody have any additional agenda items that they would like to present before we move forward? All right. I know you guys are super excited about the ones that are already on the agenda as it is. So then I will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Okay, I first,
You move. You can
I
move.
I move for the motion.
All right. Any seconds?
I will second this time.
All right. You guys switch. Nice. Any discussion about the agenda? All right. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Motion carries. Tonight's agenda is approved. That brings us to the public comments, which I guess Todd will present if there are any.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There have been none, but I do want to remind anyone who happens to watch the meeting or just hears of the meeting that there is a Stormwater Advisory Committee webpage. There's also the Athens-Clarke County Stormwater Management webpage that there's a link to the Stormwater Advisory Committee webpage. And anyway, from that you can send in comments, information, questions, whatever. So that is available to anyone in the public.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Todd. And this next agenda item is sort of the beef of tonight's meeting. It's to go over and discuss the items that we've been presented with. So the first thing I was going to ask is, has everyone had a chance to view the video about the Clean Water Act? Because I know Cassidy was having issues on the website today.
I got it. I just had to download it, so I had to do it on my laptop. I didn't have the storage on my phone.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're working on that so you can view it instead of having to download it.
Yeah,
So,
Todd, that would be helpful if you guys could make
okay.
it that
All
way.
right. We're working on it.
Thank you.
All right.
Katie, have you had a chance to view the? I'm sure this is I'm sure it was a basic tutorial for you in terms of what is involved with the Clean Water Act.
So I'm not sure I watched the Clean Water Act when I was this is my first day back in the office for 2 weeks. And we don't have internet at our house, so I have not been able to, and it was kind of a busy day. I watched one video on the modern era.
Okay.
But I know a lot about the Clean Water Act, and I know about MS4 program, so I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah. Well, essentially, Todd can summarize, but essentially it was just Cecile giving a spiel about what is involved in the stormwater program and what is required by the Clean Water Act and what is not required.
I'm on top of it.
I figured as much. And does anybody have any questions or thoughts on either the Clean Water Act or the Stormwater Paradigms article?
I just will say that my kind of takeaway from the videos, and I feel like it could be almost highlighted more as a point of emphasis, is, the stormwater program's first and foremost objective and responsibility is water quality and getting our waterways compliant with these regulations. So for me, that's been helpful as a homeowner in thinking about the services that I'm receiving and the ones that I'm not, is that, number one, are we meeting these water quality goals? And if not, if that's our main priority, everything else is coming after that. So, how can we focus more on reaching that goal? And then from there, incorporating maybe these other higher levels of service that would be nice to have as homeowners. But so I guess what I'm getting at is, for me, I think it's really important walking into this, just understanding that the purpose of MS4 permits is Clean Water Act compliance.
Yep.
Yeah, as the homeowner, like that is my perspective coming into this and just having stormwater problems. And I didn't realize that stormwater, the main function of it, as a homeowner, I'm thinking of stormwater that comes on my property. I'm not thinking about rivers and streams and the importance of keeping all of them clean, and how there's no all that stormwater just goes back into the river or streams and all of that. And for me, I guess with the paradigms thing, it's what I don't understand is that, there have been like 9 different school of thoughts in how to deal with stormwater. But, when the 60s and 70s, when my neighborhood was developed, the school of thought, like, this pipe isn't up to code and shouldn't be here. But it is. So I don't understand how to rectify all of that, how to grandfather in this old development that maybe isn't up to that, and if that makes sense to you guys. And I feel like that's a big issue, because there's just a disconnect in what we should be doing, and then how to do that. I don't know. And so that's my takeaway from it.
If you're talking about what the requiring if you're talking about requiring upgrades to stormwater infrastructure via the Clean Water Act, that is the MS4 program, that's not going to be the trigger that causes that. And while the MS4 program is a water quality program, you should keep in mind that no community with an MS4 permit is required to treat their stormwater so that it meets those water quality standards. The whole point of the Clean Water Act is water quality, but we've had lawsuits in other parts of the country where people have said the water, we should be taking water quality measurements at the outfalls, and they should be, meeting all of our water quality standards in these MS4 programs, and courts have said, no, that's not what the MS4 program requires. So I'd say water quality is the goal, but we're not going to hold communities to the specific numerical standards. And then the answer to your question is, Jamie, is a bit more complicated, but there's a lot of old infrastructure out there that, and what communities do and do not have to do with that infrastructure, what they'd be liable for repairing is, it's complicated, but we could spend 4 days talking about that. But it is difficult to get your head around, because it doesn't seem to make much sense to, I think, the average homeowner.
Yeah, that was definitely one thing that I took away from the Stormwater Paradigms article, was how complicated it is, and how you're always going to tick somebody off no matter how you try to, cover all your bases. So yeah, I mean, it was an eye-opening thing to read for sure.
One thing I was going to add is, I believe the Paradigms article was written like around 2000 or 2001 by Andrew Reese, and he updated it like in 2015, 2016 or something like that, with a new paradigm entering I guess the 10th paradigm, which he called Back to the Future, meaning that it was going back to flooding with climate change concerns and rainfall intensities appearing to change rapidly. And anyway, if y'all have time, you can search that for just his added paradigm on that.
Okay.
I'll just add one more thing that I've kind of thought about, again, kind of in terms of like the committee's overall goal. And, there are not a lot, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, there's not a lot of MS4 permits in our area, but there might be in the future as this area is growing very rapidly. So we kind of have an opportunity here to set a precedent. And, you know, we're lucky to have this program. And, you know, if we're able to do a good job of it and make it, you know, so we're utilizing the fee reasonably and to benefit the community, we might have other people in the Upper Oconee watershed looking to Athens to build their own stormwater programs. So I think that, you know, we have an opportunity here to potentially influence the greater area, because ultimately, you know, we're receiving stormwater flow from upstream communities, which we're treating and drinking. And then our stormwater is going into these waterways, which is going to other communities who are treating and drinking it too. So it all kind of comes full circle, and you know, we might have a really cool opportunity here. So
Can you guys explain an MS4 permit? What is that?
Do you want me to do it? I'd be happy to. So I've been looking at this a lot lately because I'm giving a training on MS4 in a few weeks. But Clean Water Act mostly regulates what they call point sources of pollution, right? Stuff that comes out of pipes. Point sources, like a discrete conveyance, comes out of a pipe or a ditch, some like narrow passageway. And it initially didn't really do anything about stormwater. So they, over the course of some time, developed this municipal separate stormwater, separate, whatever all the S's are, the MS4 program. It requires communities of a certain size, and now we've gotten to where we're doing pretty much every community that has 10,000 people or more in it. There's a better, much more refined definition than that, but if you have a city that has 10,000 people or more in it, you're going to have an MS4 permit. And in most states in the country, EPA has delegated this permitting authority to the state agency. So it's not EPA in Georgia who does the MS4 permitting, it's our Georgia Environmental Protection Division. And what I think in most states, what we have is a general permit. And what that means is, you know, instead of each community applying for like their own individual special permit from EPD has come up with these different, I think they have maybe two of them, or maybe three, MS4 permits for each community. And basically the community just says, we'll do everything that's in this permit. And I think annually they have to report back to EPD showing that they are indeed doing everything in the permit. The interesting thing about the MS4 permits is that they don't require the communities, like I was kind of saying earlier, to meet any hard goals with regards to water quality or you know, flooding prevention. That second part's not entirely true because of a certain aspect of the permit, but there's a number of different components to the permit, like planning. You have to have a stormwater management plan, public education, illicit discharge detection and elimination. So you have to have some sort of program where you go out and you find these illicit discharges, things that are going into your stormwater system that shouldn't be. Land disturbance regulations. You have to adopt an ordinance that says, you know, people have to manage their land disturbances in certain ways. So the permit, you can find it on the EPD website. They're the permits, because there's one for large communities, which was the phase 1 of MS4. So like Atlanta, maybe Savannah, maybe it was just Atlanta at first, but there's the large community permit and then the medium and small community permits. And it's basically just like a list of things that communities have to do. Does that make sense? I mean, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, thank you for explaining MS4 permits, Katie. Let's see. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I have a question. So I'm so sorry that I missed the first meeting. I think I still was out of town, but I didn't anyway. So this committee, we're just taking a look at the history of stormwater management in Athens and seeing what should be done next. Are we solely focused on the utilization of the stormwater utility fee, or is it a broader charge, like the entire stormwater program? When Kelly spoke with me, I thought it was more along the lines of looking at the stormwater utility fee and how that money has been spent and whether we should be amending that program in any way. But I don't know if there are other parts of the stormwater program. Are we looking at it all together? I mean, could somebody help explain that to me just a little bit? Because I think if we don't have a clear charge, it would be difficult for me to understand.
Todd, did you wanna chime in?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So these are all good points and issues. So with regard to stormwater funding, and I was gonna actually talk about that. I do think when we talk about level of service, that is generally associated with the stormwater fee. However, there are other funding sources. As you may be aware, one has been splossed, one may be T-splossed, and there are development permit fees that we charge for our site inspections that we do as developments are going in to make sure that they're being built according to the plans, and review of the stormwater management plans. So it's really impossible to talk about the fee without talking about those other sources of funding as well, although the fee really is probably the primary part of the funding equation that we're looking at. But it's not the only thing, and I think that this committee can weigh in on all of it, really, because it's all interrelated.
Todd, one of the questions I had, speaking of the fee, and I may have read this wrong, but in one of the slides on the website, it said that the stormwater utility fee that we pay as homeowners goes to make sure that to uphold like clean water standards and things like that. But in terms of infrastructure, that fee that's handled by roads and that department, is that correct? Like in terms of pipes and drainage and level of service, owner request and all of that, that money comes from a different pot than the stormwater fee. Is that correct?
So these are all great questions. So streets and drainage is one of the divisions of Transportation and Public Works, and they do get funding, some of their funding, quite a bit of their funding from the stormwater fee. And they do, they clean street storm inlets and storm pipes and things like that. So maintenance of the stormwater system, that comes from the stormwater fee as well. Now, there are some larger stormwater projects that have been done in the past, and those have generally been funded by SPLOST. And you're asking great questions because you're heading me off here. I was going to talk about this stuff anyway, but there was something called an area-wide stormwater management plan, and I can talk about that later. So basically, it was in 2002, and it prioritized stormwater projects in Athens-Clarke County. A lot of it had to do with street flooding. But if you take care of a street flooding problem, then you're outletting it to someone's yard, and if you're increasing the flow to their yard, then you kind of have to carry that project all the way down. So those projects became big projects that went off right of way, off streets, through people's yards, and all of that. And so those were some pretty extensive projects, and those were funded by SPLOST.
I had a follow-up question for you, Todd, but before I keep going there, I just want to make sure that Katie's general question about just a clarification on the charge of this committee was answered. To summarize, it sounds like we're supposed to provide recommendations on the funding strategy and the level of service, that's our primary charge, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes. And as I've thought about this, Ed, what I think would be the best thing for this committee, the most lasting legacy that this committee could create, has to do with prioritization. What is the order of priorities? And we just list everything that the stormwater utility could do, and what are those priorities? The committee can also make recommendations with regard to funding levels, but that kind of thing changes from year to year. And the prioritization is something that could be that would last until, we look at it again 10 years from now, 15 years from now, whatever. I think that's really the most important thing. What are the highest priorities, and then just go right on down the list. And as the money becomes available, yeah, we'd like to do this thing that's number 35 on the list, but that's going to require more money, and that gets into complicated questions of how do we get the money. And certainly this committee can make some recommendations, and certainly probably will. But I think the most important thing from my standpoint as part of the charge of this committee is to get that level of priorities, so that when number 55 comes in and someone starts to make a really strong case for that it doesn't jump the line in front of number 3, and we're getting out of sync with where we really want to be.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. I agree with that. And that is a good segue, actually, because the only other portion of this agenda item that we haven't talked about is the stormwater customer concerns. So are you able to share that list with us? You can minimize the agenda.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm blind, but I can see.
All right. Well, I got it up. Yeah. No, my WebEx screen is just become microscopic. So I didn't know if you could see this or not, but hopefully you can.
Has everyone had a chance to look at this list and sort of think about what your top concerns would be? Good, good. Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, this was this is a huge thing, because we are here obviously to represent the entire community. And so to that extent, these concerns could be things that mirror our community, our other community members, or they could be different. So the first question that I asked Todd was, and I think we'll get to this in future meetings, what do we have in terms of feedback from ACC community members the stormwater concerns, the concerns when it comes to stormwater management? And so I think this is a good exercise for all of us to sort of go through and look at the concerns that we see on the list. And of course, one thing that comes up is, are there concerns that we or our fellow community members have, our neighbors, our friends, our family members, that aren't already on this list? And so I think this is a good opportunity for us to assess, where we all are in terms of background information, and think about, how this mixes up with our charge as a committee.
Are we supposed to be doing this survey? I was confused about if this was a survey that was being sent out to somebody, or if we're supposed to be filling this out.
I had the same question, Katie, actually.
Well, my thought was I really for each committee member, is there anything on there? Are there any of those concerns that resonate with you? Or is it something completely different? So the idea is, these are things that we've heard from stormwater customers. So this shows kind of a range of concerns that we hear. But are there any of those concerns that resonate with committee members?
I'll start, because I've been battling. How I got on this is I've been kind of in arguments with the county. I mean, very kind arguments, and everyone has been very helpful. But for over a year about our stormwater situation, and the first thing that I don't think is on there, as coming from someone that has no experience with water whatsoever, is that like, I think there's a disconnect with the public and the fee, because you think that the fee is for maintenance and things like that, but really it's to provide clean water for, make sure our rivers, our streams, all this runoff is clean. But people, because I've had many discussions with my neighbors and friends and people I know because of my individual situation, people don't really like the fee, and they don't think the fee benefits them. And it's like, if you have runoff on your property, the county won't help. I've had this pipe that shouldn't be here kind of almost destroy my septic system, and you feel like the burden should be on the county, but the way the law is, it's not. The level of service agreement that was written in 92 is not, basically, unless it's a dumpster fire, the county can't intervene on your property. So the thing that resonates with me is that I pay this fee and I don't feel like I'm being and I've had to put $5,000 worth of infrastructure, a drainage on my property to fix the stormwater runoff. And I don't feel like my fee, what I'm paying is helping that. But I also never realized that this fee is to make sure our rivers and everything are clean. I just thought it had to do with drainage ditches and stuff like that. And so I don't, that's my takeaway from it.
Did the ordinance establishes the stormwater utility focus solely on water quality? Because the Clean Water Act's about water quality, but the stormwater utility fee is not required by the Clean Water Act at all. It is an outside program that Athens-Clarke County and many other communities in Georgia and across the country developed to help fund their stormwater programs. They
So
can be for flooding, they could be for water quality, they could, it depends, but I just don't know. I haven't looked.
we will look at that ordinance, chapter 5.5. I'm glad that you brought it up. We will be
You mean
looking
we're
at
gonna look
that.
at it right now, or we're gonna look at it later?
We're going in the future. We
Okay.
can only do so much in one meeting.
Okay.
That's true. That's true. Good point.
But yeah, but Jamie, just know that, I don't know what the ordinance says, and if the ordinance just says water quality, then yeah, I guess the money's just for water quality, but the ordinance, the ordinance establishing the utility is, not required by the Clean Water Act, so it's not bound by the requirements of the Clean Water Act.
Anyone else have any thoughts? Ed, did you have any thoughts about what comes to mind looking at this list?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. It seemed like there's maybe an educational outreach matter that could be used to help people understand what it's for. And then really things that came to mind for me was, I guess, what Todd had said about the prioritization of these things. And just when you look at it, to me, this is not necessarily Athens, it's many municipalities. There's a liability side of the equation, expenses, maintenance that's needed to keep things up, and then there's a revenue side. And rarely do those two work out where there's enough revenue to handle everything. And so then you just have to make some very tough decisions and trade-offs to figure out, how to balance those two and make it work. And the main thing and this is the question I was going to follow up with Todd before, is I can't help but always be comparing this stormwater with water and sewer, and how, on the development side, how that is always handled, where they seem to have figured out, and obviously, the infrastructure that we're talking about is different. Stormwater is a lot trickier with the zone of influence and all of that, but they have very clear delineation of responsibility, where the city is responsible, where the homeowner is responsible. And then they have, huge impact fees to help cover infrastructure. That, there's not only your monthly water bill to cover that, but when a new development comes, they have to write $300,000, $400,000 checks that is basically putting money for future infrastructure. And to me, it is a little bit striking, the disparity in how somewhat functional that the revenue expenditure balance is for water and sewer infrastructure versus how out of balance it is for stormwater. And so trying to wrap my head around why it's so far off. Is it that the MS4, the different phases of the MS4 are relatively recent developments and we're very much catching up with that, or what? I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, people have been developing land for quite some time and doing really, really, really lousy stormwater management. So it's a problem that it's just a whole different setup than water and sewer, or it's a much more complicated problem to fix. And we haven't really been managing stormwater in any kind of a great way. I mean, we still in many ways don't do a good job. So go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, just in my understanding, just from my personal situation, is that new development, there is recourse if there are stormwater issues that come up. You can sue the developer, you can sue the individual that, changed the flow of the water. But all this old development that shouldn't have been approved has been grandfathered in, and you can't. It's maddening because you just have no recourse. You can't get, the county or the city. Like if I lived in a new subdivision and something like this happened, I could sue the developer. But my house should have never been approved, and it was. And but because it was done in the 70s, I just have to like deal with it. And I think that is kind of my goal with all of this is just to kind of make the fee where you just feel like it's a little more equitable, I guess. I don't know, and all of that. But I just couldn't understand how you have recourse for new development, but there's just nothing to do with the old development. But maybe that's common in development in general. So I don't know.
And speaking from Public Works, it is something that's not just stormwater, right? So you're right, it's a larger development problem in general with kind of people getting legacied into older standards that are hard to chase back the culprits or have any legal standing against that. It's lighting, it's roadway development, it's stormwater, it's a lot of things that fall into that same issue. Jamie, another thing that to kind of go back to what you said, this is great because this is exactly what we're talking about with level of service, and really speaking to what Ed said too, like it gets so complicated, the level of service that we approved back then on how far the county can maintain, to the edge of the right of way, and then what we can and can't do off the right of way. It's convoluted, and there's not an easy way to explain it to the average person. But as Ed pointed to, it comes back to like the revenues and expenses, where it will be something we have to see if as this committee continues to discuss and look at actual costs of some of the benefits we're talking about. Is it worth it to you all to put forward, let's say maintenance of all pipes within public and private right away? What does that do to the average person's monthly bill, that kind of thing? And that's exactly the conversation we're going to dive into with this.
Yeah.
Would you guys have numbers for that? So if we said we think you should maintain every single, I mean, would you be able to tell us exactly how much the utility? Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to get in a few meetings from this one, once we have our history lessons done, we're going to have Stantec, which is one of our consultants, come in, and they're actually going to share a screen with some Excel sheets where, as we're talking about different levels of service, they can show us in real time what that does to the average person's bill, right? So we say, well, what does it look like if we do A, B, and C, but not D? And they'll change it in front of us. So you'll see as we're talking what those costs look like.
Okay, and have you guys, will you be presenting information on what other communities in Georgia and maybe even outside of Georgia have done with their utility fee programs?
We will. So Todd and others have done a lot of research and talked to our peers and seen what they have and haven't done.
Really good, because I was thinking, man, somebody should really do that, and I don't have time to do that, so I hope somebody else has done that.
So
I
Awesome.
have a bunch of students I could ask to do, but not.
I just wanted to kind of throw in my thought on this, especially with the comparison with water and sewage. You know, water and sewage are public utilities, and stormwater inherently is not. I mean, there is like a watershed protection fee within your water bill, and that helps fuel that program. But we only have the stormwater fee to fund the stormwater program, and the responsibility of the program is to the community and not to the individual landowner. And we can fix every individual landowner's drainage problems if we want to jack up the stormwater fee 3-4 times. But we
Yeah.
also live in a community with a really high poverty rate, and that's going to have drastic impacts on these homeowners who are already struggling with increased property taxes and ad valorem taxes. And so that's just my perspective on that. Like, I don't think it's a fair comparison between water and sewer and stormwater. And, you know, we need to make sure that we keep that in mind.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Would there be, with the infrastructure bill coming, you think there'd be any budgetary advantages to what they're working on with the federal level now?
Yes. So
Yeah, Stephen answer that. Yeah.
Sure. I love budget questions, right? So yeah, with and first, remember, not only is the infrastructure bill coming through, but also we just got a huge stimulus bill, COVID-related stimulus bill as well, that actually touches on infrastructure. So we are waiting to see what the mayor and commission are going to do with about $57 million that could go toward, part of it could actually go toward water and stormwater infrastructure rehabilitation, which is great
Wow.
for some of our larger problems. And then on top of that, the infrastructure bill, you know, reading between the lines, of course, they just passed it, which means they have no idea how they're actually going to implement it at this point. But with at least 110, I'm sorry, as it's getting passed through Senate, yeah. But the latest version had said about 110 toward roads and bridges. And so bridges, you know, also can contain culverts, and that can go to stormwater. So we really need to wait and hear on language what that comes down to. But it's going to trickle down to us probably from federal to state to local. And I hope we can get some more information on that in the near future, especially as we make these decisions with our group and as we make T-SPLOST decisions with the other group that's coming up soon. So we're on the edge of our seats with that one.
Hey, I want to come back real quick to the comparison of water and sewer, and just from why on the you know, engineering and development side, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, because I'll describe in Clarke County, for example, this is how water and sewer infrastructure is treated when it is developed. So, for example, all of the pipe material types are completely regulated by the utility department, and the testing of all that infrastructure, easements are recorded and filed at the courthouse to ensure that the department has access to and maintain those easements in perpetuity. And there's a huge impact fee. So the developer has to spend a lot of money to make sure this infrastructure can be shared by the wider community. For stormwater, so if we're saying that stormwater is different because it's not so individual, and there's these much larger effects, which there are, like Cassidy was explaining, downstream networks, upstream networks. You would think you would see some of that in how that is regulated, but it's the opposite. In our plans, we can pick any kind of pipe material that we want if once it's outside of the right of way. A developer can put a corrugated metal pipe if they'd like, if it's not in a stormwater facility. the easements are not necessarily recorded over the conveyance system. They are recorded for the facilities, but not the conveyance systems, the pipes and the ditches and whatnot. I would say the stormwater infrastructure is way looser, way more, just is up to the developer and the engineers to figure out how to handle than the water and sewer is, and the fees are way less as well. The expenditure. So to me, if there are larger ramifications, outside of our own community for stormwater, I would expect some of that infrastructure to be more closely held, not looser. But anyway.
Yeah, and Ed, especially over here on the east side where I live, where there is no sewer. So you can just tell, like, the stormwater infrastructure that was put in place a long time ago, it was kind of the Wild West. No one really there. And so I think it would, like, that's just something to keep in mind, that when you're outside of the loop, the infrastructure is not the same. And you can see it out here every time it rains. When there's a major rain event, you see it.
Yeah.
Todd, did you have anything to add, or?
No, not until I get to my part of it.
Oh, gosh.
I
We have-
believe it's your part of it. So you
Okay.
want
All right.
Y'all, I am very, very sorry. I cannot stay more longer. I have to be home to help with bath time and bedtime. I'm sorry. It was difficult
All
for
right.
me to make this 5 o'clock meeting.
And
I can't do it.
And actually, before Katie leaves, how does everybody feel about trying a earlier meeting time so that we can all attend? I'm fine with a meeting time between 12 and 1, anytime during the week. Is there any day that we can all meet at noon?
I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have 3 kids and I have a newborn. He's 7 weeks old. So
Oh.
my two kids will be in school. I can meet during the daytime with my newborn, but like if he needs to feed or flips out or something like that, I'll have to dip out. I can't. But other than that, like this is when my husband can watch the kids. But I mean, I'm happy to accommodate you guys and all that. I don't know how present I'll be. It all depends on his disposition at the time. So
Okay, I understand.
We can work it out later. This is a particularly difficult day for me. I could maybe
I'm
do it
sorry,
later
Katie.
in the day later. We've just, I promised I would be home. I didn't think this meeting would go over an hour. So,
All right.
Well,
sincerest apologies.
thank you. I appreciate it. We'll work it out.
Yeah.
I'll send an email so we can kind of come to a consensus.
Okay. All right, y'all.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Todd, take it away.
All right. Gosh, when I had first been thinking about this committee, I had a whole list of meetings and what would be discussed at each meeting. And then I pretty much threw that all away. And I think it was a good exercise, but really what I wanted this to be is your committee. And so you're all asking logical questions. And so it's the next agenda I don't have in mind, but I'm going to listen. I have some things in mind for sure, but part of it also is kind of concerns and issues that you're bringing up now. And that's a direction that we'll go in. So, for example, Katie brought up something that relates to chapter 5.5. So, okay, she's interested in that. Well, let's get into that. And of course, Jamie, you're bringing up some good issues about the Clean Water Act. MS4 is one that people, stormwater people, just throw around like everyone knows what that is. But basically, if you hear MS4, just think Clean Water Act. You may also hear NPDES, same thing, Clean Water Act. It's just part of the Clean Water Act. There's acronyms, from federal legislation. So there is that. And Bruno has asked about public surveys. He's wanting to know more about costs of live stream pipe replacements. These are all the kinds of questions that I had anticipated. And then I knew there would be questions that I don't anticipate. And of course, I think 90% of those are going to come from Ed Lane, because I never know what that guy's thinking. Anyway. All right. So I included in the first agenda a couple of Mayor and Commission agenda items from the time period when the current stormwater path we are on was being set up back in 2003. One was from October 2003, and it addressed the stormwater funding strategy. And this is something we've also talked about a little bit already. So the strategy in the beginning was to fund capital projects from SPLOST. And those capital projects were from a prioritized list called the Area-Wide Stormwater Master Plan. And then permitting and inspection costs were to be from associated permit fees. So developers come in and pay fees. And then the Clean Water Act Stormwater Management Program from the stormwater fee. So that's kind of the way it was. Now, what has changed since then? Because nothing ever stays quite the same, does it? So I want to make 5 quick points on that. One, the most important stormwater capital needs at the present are the replacement of rusty pipes under Athens-Clarke County roads, and we're calling that the live stream replacement list. So if you hear live stream replacement list, that's our current capital program, really. And that has just happened, that has just come up because we're finding they're all rusting out and the roads are caving in. So obviously, we need to replace them. Weren't really thinking about that so much when the fee was set up in 2003. Instead, we had this area-wide stormwater master plan, which focused on kind of street flooding problems. So second point, SPLOST is not going to be a big part of stormwater capital going forward for the foreseeable future. And to the extent it is, the funding will go towards replacement of rusty stormwater culverts. So yes, already talked about that. Most of the projects from the original area-wide stormwater master plan have been completed. And one of the things that we've noticed that happens is that people see those SPLOST stormwater projects and they say, well, why can't I have a stormwater project like that on my property? And so they're saying, well, I pay the fee. So, and these are projects, they're stormwater projects. So why can't I have a project? Well, those were SPLOST projects, and those projects, there just are no more SPLOST stormwater projects. So that's just a change that has happened from 2003, from the beginning. So 3, T-SPLOST 2023 is a potential source of funding for stormwater capital going forward. And remember, when you hear stormwater capital, think rusty pipes. 4, the stormwater fee has been the primary emergency source of funding for replacement of rusty stormwater pipes. That was not one of the original intended uses, but these pipes started rusting, roads started caving in. Where are we going to get the money? Well, we had some money built up in the stormwater fee. So it's been helpful from a resilience standpoint. And my guess is that even if we get funding from T-SPLOST 2023 for capital, rusty pipes, that the stormwater fee is going to be at least a part of the equation there for funding for emergency pipe replacements. 5, development fees. So the question we have is, those developers are paying fees to cover the cost of our stormwater management plan reviews and our inspections, because we have site inspectors that go out every day and make sure that these projects are being built according to the plans. The original idea seemed to have been that those fees would roughly pay for that part of the program. Is it keeping up? That's a question we're asking ourselves and we're looking at right now. And that's something that I think it would be appropriate for this committee to weigh in on as we get further along. You know, I'm thinking, I wish we could do all of this stuff at the next meeting, but obviously there's only so much that can be done in one meeting. So the other agenda item that I had included in that original agenda, the Mayor and Commission agenda item, had to do with our obligations under the Clean Water Act. And most of you had a chance to see Cecile's presentation, but it's a quite extensive list of permit requirements. And just to emphasize the point, that Cassidy has made. It's easy to forget that. That's the reason the fee was set up, is for this clean water program, and that is still our primary mission. With regard to the stormwater paradigms, just point out that my view of drainage issues has evolved over time. And I'll mention something because I've been in conversations with people who moved into subdivisions, and it's this system of swales. Okay, so swales are just like ditches that are grassed and a kind of shallow slope to them, instead of pipes in the backyard. Okay, and so people, I had one person told me, well, it should be proper drainage. So what he meant by proper drainage was pipes. So some people still have this idea that everything should be pipes. And one time I met with some property owners, and there was a backyard swale that carries all the water from their backyards. And it looked fine to me. It was grass, and it was dry when we were there. Now, if it rained, then you probably couldn't mow it that day or the next day, but the day after that, you'd be fine. But there's a group of property owners there, and they were saying, well, how would you feel if this was in your backyard? And to me, it was fine, but I didn't feel like I could say that because they would say, oh, you're just saying that. So that's where you get into this issue of different paradigms. I said, my paradigm is completely different from theirs. Mine is, hey, let's get that water to soak into the ground. The ground is full of microbial life. There's all these little things that want to eat any pollutants that are in the stormwater. And that's the best thing to do is to have that water, that ground soak up the water and really purify it. So different paradigms at work there. And that's why I like that article by Andrew Rees. So there's that. As I mentioned in the last meeting, I keep mentioning it's a kind of a recurring theme, this idea of prioritization. I had remember a teacher, an English literature teacher in high school, he said, look for the recurring themes. So the recurring theme that you're going to hear from me is prioritization. And I heard Ed say the word clarity. He said there's clarity in the world of sanitary sewers, and there's no clarity in stormwater. So that's what your charge is, to provide that clarity. So yeah, providing a set of clear priorities is probably the major challenge this group faces. Stormwater staff and Stantec can be a resource in that quest. This group can certainly make funding recommendations to Mayor and Commission, but the lasting legacy, I believe, will be a system of prioritization. You will see a document and where previous people have attempted to do that, and I give them credit for trying, but I think I have a lot of faith that this committee can do even better than that. Between now and next meeting, well, one of the things I want to do is I want to look at the YouTube of this and kind of hear everything that people said again, so that will kind of shape maybe some of my comments. But one of the things I really would like for people to look at, if you can, is the December 4th, 2018 Mayor and Commission meeting, and it's the public comments part. And I have a document which you may or may not have, which says it's called resources, and it lists the different times that different people are speaking. That will help you so you don't have to go through the whole thing. And there's a different ways to get to those archived Mayor and Commission meetings. What I like to do is just go to YouTube and do a search on 12-4-2018 Athens-Clarke County Mayor and Commission meeting. There's a way to get into it from Athens-Clarke County Mayor and Commission website. To me, it's a little more complicated. If you have problems with that, we can work through that. But the reason is because that was public input, and that was when people thought there was going to be a fee increase. So it's good to get that feel for how the community feels. As Cassidy mentioned, there is a high poverty rate in this county, and so it's good to hear different perspectives. And then videos that I would recommend between now and the next meeting. One is called The Modern Era, and one is called The Level of Service. And of course, that is what we're talking about, is level of service. And we're going to try and get those so that they don't have to download. This committee is a little different because we're putting a bunch of stuff on that stormwater advisory resource material, and most committees, I guess, don't do that. But I just thought it was appropriate to do that because that way not only you can see that material, but anyone from the public can see it as well and join in with us if they would like to. And that's it. Yeah, it's your committee, guys, and you're shaping what happens at the next agenda and kind of where I'm going as far as the next agendas go. You're all asking great logical questions that I expected, except for Ed. Ed always brings up things that I don't anticipate.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Todd.
All right.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Go for it. Yes, absolutely.
I think I really like this idea of the prioritization. I do a lot of prioritization in work too, and it like Ed said, it really creates clarity. And this was something that came up when I was watching the videos. What did you call it, Todd? Like mission lead or mission bleed or
It's mission creep. I'm not sure.
creep?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that is a really interesting issue. And I think that it's a county issue. Like there were some decisions made at some point in time that created ambiguity that have led to this problem that we are dealing with.
Yeah.
So I think this committee being able to create this prioritization to create clarity will allow the county to make better decisions to reduce this ambiguity in the long run. So I'm all for that idea. I think it's great.
And I just the ambiguity, yes. I believe we waste a lot of time going back and forth on do we do this or do we not do this. I wish I just knew we had a roadmap. We do this or we don't do this, because we're really wasting time and energy going back and forth trying to figure that out. That's why this committee is here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and clearly it's been quite a while since there has been weigh-in from the community on these issues.
Yes.
And so I think that is really underlying how important it is that we, and I think that today's session was good because I think that we're all on the same page when it comes to some pretty critical, fundamental questions. And so I definitely look forward to the conversation that we have next meeting. Any other questions for Todd?
My last comment, I really like the videos. They were really helpful for me. I think they'd probably be really helpful for a lot of other homeowners. I think they're great. I think you should leave them up. I think they'd be great on the Stormwater webpage. Also, my laptop's about to die, so if I disappear, I apologize for that.
Absolutely. And I would like to reiterate for anyone that happens to be watching the meeting that your comments are welcome and that we are excited to receive any questions or comments from community members that are motivated enough to watch this video. So we are here for the entire community of Athens-Clarke County. So I just want to, and I will repeat that because we are just representatives of the Athens-Clarke County community on this committee. So that takes us to our next to last agenda item, which I think we've already kind of discussed. I just, I really want to make sure that everyone is able to meet at a time that's good for them. And I know that it's difficult for Katie to meet in the afternoon hours. So I sort of had an idea, and I'm not sure if this is feasible, but to do alternating meeting times, i.e. we meet 1 month at noon and 1 month at 5 o'clock, but on the same sort of designated day of the week. Because I really like having a day of the month that's dedicated to a meeting. So today would be the first Wednesday of the month. And we do this with our UON meetings as well. So I think it's helpful. Does anybody have any thoughts on, as we move forward, having a designated day of the week and then we just switch? But even now, as I say that, I feel like that's maybe a little convoluted. What do y'all think?
I'm open.
Flexible. I'm flexible.
Good. I like flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of it being, like you said, if it's first Wednesday, that just allows there's a lot of different standing meetings. So I like that a lot. I'm fine with the alternating. Maybe it does sound a little convoluted, but because I could probably make most, if it's noon to 1,
Yeah.
I could make most of those. I am going to miss some of those, whereas
Okay.
the 5 o'clock ones, I would be more likely to make. But,
All right. All right.
but that's just my schedule. So your general, I think that's good. I don't know if we want to do another doodle poll with different instructions of just, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't want to overthink it, but we're a small community. We're a small committee, which is nice.
Yes.
So the chances of us being able to accommodate everyone is better, than if it were a larger committee.
And I'm open to alternating it too. Just understand, I might
Okay.
have a newborn in the background screaming. As long as you guys are cool with that, then that's fine with me.
Well, if everyone's amenable, why don't we try next month in September? Why don't we try the same day of the month, but at noon? And we'll see how that goes, and then we'll sort of move forward from there. We'll see how the noontime goes.
Let's make sure to give Katie as much advance notice as possible so she can get it on her calendar.
Absolutely, I will do that. I'll get in touch with her first thing tomorrow.
Bruno, I emailed you. I had a couple problems coming back from vacation, looking at a couple links.
Okay.
If you could help the uneducated guy out here.
Absolutely. I think that Stephen was looking into it, and I think he was looking into like changing the format on the website so people could pull it up easier.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. I
But
use
yeah.
a lot of Google Docs and stuff, but I don't use some of this other stuff.
Yeah, it seemed like they had it in a format that was you had to download it when you clicked on the link, but it seems like they're looking at making it a little more user friendly. So
Okay, great.
Hey, Bruno,
awesome.
just to clarify here on the minutes. So you said it was going to be the first Wednesday of September, which would be the 1st. Is that correct?
Let me look at my calendar right quick. Yes, yeah, that's the first Wednesday.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yep. At noon. Yep.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the last. Does anybody have any comments before we adjourn? And I promise, as we move forward, to try to keep our hours, our meetings to an hour or less. That's very important to me because I know everyone has busy lives. So, but yeah, thank you everyone again, and I will see you guys on September 1st.
Look
Sounds
forward
good.
to it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruno.
Yes, thanks all. Y'all have a good night.
Take
You
care.
too.
Bye.